welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me this week are Eric Devine and Philippe Bargio. We are back from our short hiatus after the events of the 13th of November in Paris, and at this time, we would like to say that all our thoughts and prayers are with the families and friends of the victims of the attacks. And it was wonderful to see the solidarity, not just from the people in France, but from across the world over the past week or so. But we got back into Ligue 1 action at the weekend, so before we delve into a diverse amount of topics that we have today, here is your latest Ligue 1 headlines. Nice got their first Nice got the Ligue weekend off to a flying start, putting 3 goals past Lyon at the Riviera, a result that left the hosts just 1 point behind their rivals. Saturday's early match saw Paris Saint-Germain on the road against Lorient, but the venue made no difference as the leaders held off Les Merlus 2-1, Hervé Ngenda netting an opening goal in a rare start for the youngster. In the multiplex, Troyes got a much-needed point, with Corentin Jean cancelling out a Yacine over Nantes, while elsewhere on the south coast, Montpellier came back from a goal down to beat Reims 3-1, Brian Dabo notching a goal and an assist. Guingamp compounded Toulouse's misery this weekend, Jean-Armel Carrière-Biec seeing red as the hosts won convincingly 2-0 at the Stade Roudeau. High winds on Saturday caused the Corsican derby to be moved to early on Sunday, but the scheduling of the fixture made no difference to Gazla Ajaccio, who moved out of the drop zone thanks to a 2-1 victory over Bastia at the Furiani. Sunday's other early match saw the season's 2 surprise packages, Angers and Caen, meet at the Stade Michel Donano. The hosts cling on to a scoreless draw despite the dismissal of defender Alidian Yair in midway through the first half. The early evening match saw goals aplenty as both Bordeaux and Rennes woke admirably from their slumbers in an entertaining 2-2 draw in Brittany. In Sunday's big game, Marseille defeated Saint-Etienne 2-0, denting Les Verts' Champions League hopes against both teams ahead of both teams' midweek fixtures. In Ligue 2, Nancy and Dijon remain locked on 29 points in the top spot, although much of the league's fixtures are being played today and tomorrow. And that's all for this week's news. If that hasn't quite whet your appetite, then head to our website and Twitter to keep up to date right throughout the week. The links are in the description on this video. Also, now you can find us on iTunes. Please just search for the Get French Football News Show on the stores page. It even comes up as a suggestion. I tried it earlier. And subscribe to the show. Our first topic this week focuses on Friday night's game as Lyon headed south to Nice and could not have hoped for much worse than they got. A 3-0 defeat that leaves them 13 points adrift of Paris Saint-Germain in first place and only 11 points ahead of 18th place Bastia, which is a cracking stat, I must say. This has been a major step back for Hubert Fournier's men this season, hasn't it, so far, Philippe?
Yeah, you could say that. Very, very good game to watch. Nice beating Lyon 3-0. Great to have Ligue 1 back after the international break. And a great start to the game. Lyon just had lots and lots of chances, but just couldn't put a single shot on target for the whole of the first half. And Nice just weren't playing very well at the start. And the defending was not very good either. But Beauvu squandered his chance, so did Lacazette, who hit the post. And Nice, on the other hand, had a few chances, but they were all on target. And then a little guy called Siri popped up in midfield, and he had a really, really great game. And it's from him that came the opening goal from Jamin, which beat Lopez. And you have to say it wasn't really deserved that Nice were leading 1-0 because Lyon had so many chances, but they just miss this guy who's confident enough to put the ball not even in the back of the net, but just put the ball on target. Because Bouvou is not capable of doing that, and Lacazette, well, sure, I'm pretty sure he is capable of doing that, but it's just not happening for them. And they basically have no one who knows where the goal is at this moment in time. So it does depend, it does depend because Lacazette did score a hat-trick in the derby 2 weeks ago, and he wasn't helpless either. I mean, he did have his moments, but when Yann Mbeumo scored that own goal, which we'll probably talk about him later, which completely epitomizes his whole performance. It was like, Lyon had just given up. There was no real revolt around the play, and it just is there really something missing. So yes, Fekir is injured, and he probably won't be back for 3 or 4 months, I think. But the defending is very, very poor. It really is bad when Gonalon, a defensive midfielder, who's been trained as a defensive midfielder, is actually having a better game as a centre back than the centre back Mapu Yann Mbeumo. Midfield, Tolisso, he's just not used to playing a defensive midfield like defence shielder, and up front, as I said, they don't have anyone to put the ball in the back of the net. So it's just not going to work well. Fournier has to bring back some discipline in the ranks, and hopefully they can score a goal. I'm still quite surprised that they have managed 19 goals in 14 games. Actually, that was 19 goals in 13 games because they didn't score on Friday. It really is quite astonishing when you see how poor they were in front of the goal on Friday evening.
Eric, it was a strange game in many ways, but Nice really, especially in the second half, seemed the better team. What's really going wrong at Lyon at the moment? I mean, it was a great chance to sort of pull away from the pack that's sort of forming behind PSG.
Right. So Philip touched on a couple of things there, and I want to sort of sharpen the point on a couple of those, if you will. I think that, first of all, injuries are really playing a huge part in the problems Lyon are having. Christophe Jallet has a broken rib now. He's joining the likes of Fekir and Fofana on the sidelines, and Clement Grenier as well. So things aren't going to get any easier for Lyon in the weeks to come. I'm not sure how long the Jallet will be out for, but we'd be thinking at least 2 to 3 weeks. Yann Mbeumo is for whatever reason not cutting. I mean, this is a player who had done exceptionally well as part of that title-winning side at Montpellier a few years ago. Didn't have the most success in England, as I'm sure Nathan can attest to, at his time at Newcastle, and departed for Roma, and had a reasonably good time there. But you have to remember the pace of the Italian league is probably the slowest of any of the top 5 leagues, and he was brought in, as a nominal replacement for Milan Bizovac, who's a little bit older and has had his own injury problems, and has just not seemed up to it. I mean, he had the own goal. He failed to track the run of Coziello on Nice's third. Just a really shocking performance, and he's done this time and again. And we received reports earlier in the season of Lindsay Rose having some issues in training, getting into a fight. I'm blanking on who it was with, but having some discipline issues. Bakary Kone, who played quite a bit last season, hasn't been with the squad either for most match days, and I don't understand what's going on here. And in terms of the defense, they've been achieving relatively good numbers in terms of goals conceded up until this match, and I think that Fournier just needs to swallow his pride and bring back in either Kone or Rose. There's, especially in the absence of Mtiti yesterday, this team just doesn't have what it takes in terms of Yann Mbeumo to be defensively solid. And, the attack's not clicking the way it was last year with Fekir and Ng, but by the same token, Lyon are doing fine in terms of their placement in the table. But, if you're going to have this sort of defensive performance on a regular basis, that's really a recipe for disaster. Yes, Nice have shown that they're really good to pick apart teams, but, on the day, they were missing quite a few players as well. I mean, Wallison, the right back, Ricardo is missing as well. This wasn't they played a 3-5-2, which is not their usual formation. And Nice were certainly injury hit themselves. So, this is just a really probably the poorest result of the season in a lot of ways for Lyon, just because it seems like, all of the liminal problems that they'd had before in terms of, well, okay, the defense is doing okay, even if the offense isn't, just seemed to come together at the wrong time, and they got really embarrassed on Friday.
Sorry, Eric, I did cut you off there.
Just one thought about how do you assess Umtiti's season so far? Because I don't think this is only a problem of Younger Mbeumo. I haven't really seen the Umtiti of last season so far. I mean, I'm not saying he's having a bad time, but I don't know. It just seems he could be much more better in the air or with the ball at his feet and stuff like that. I don't know. It just really seems like the defense is just not playing like they were last season.
I mean, I think Umtiti's had a decent enough season. You're right; he's not up to the standard of last year, but in terms of playing with the ball at his feet, I think he's one of the better center backs in the league at that. Watching Lyon week in and week out, he's if the wide players are having a hard time with things. In terms of the fullbacks, Umtiti is not one that's afraid to get out with the ball at his feet, knowing that Gonalons can track his runs and that he can get out and play. I think that aerially, you've got a fair point there. He's not been at his best in terms of playing the ball in the air, but that's something that's new, a new adjustment for him. Going back the past couple of years, he had the likes of Bisevac and Kone and Rose alongside him, and they were sort of more of the plotting, big center backs that would handle the more physical side of things, where Umtiti would be a bit more cultured and be able to play with the ball at his feet. And that's not the case this season. Umtiti's being asked to do something a little bit different. And let's remember, he's still a young player. I think he's just turning 21 or 22 later this month. So he's still adjusting to what is in reality a different role for him this season.
The problem on Friday evening was that Mapu was probably asked to hold the ball up and go a bit forward with it. And the first half, he had on two occasions he had the ball in Nice's half, because most of the time Nice were actually defending quite deep. And when he was in those kind of positions, I'm talking of Mapu just going beyond the halfway line, and he twice those long balls, and they were straight into touch. So it wasn't only the defending that was atrocious; it was him with the ball at his feet, and you almost feel sorry for the guy, because he's just so he seems completely clueless at the back, and when he is given the ball at his feet, trying to put a ball forward, which is not his job. I mean, he's really not been never was this kind of defender, but he just put it into touch, and I think. It's been a particularly bad day for Younger Mbeumo, and I don't. If I'm being honest, I don't think we'll see that bad a performance anytime soon, because the guy still won the league, even though it was a few years back. I mean, he still won the league. But it is a problem. But on the other hand, Nice were almost lethal. I mean, just like the wins against Bordeaux, against Saint-Etienne, they just took their chances, and Lyon couldn't, and that's a bigger problem. Is that with a Fekir, the game would have been totally different. Could have been 3-0 up before Nice's first.
I think that's the problem at the moment for Lyon is that teams are sitting, like you said, Yang Mbeumo was almost being in Nice's half at some points, and that's because teams are sitting so far deep on Lyon, they can't break through. Because a lot of their play, I think Eric will attest to this a bit, that Lyon will go 1-0 up, and then all the rest of their goals will come from quick play from Lacazette and Fekir. Even on counter-attacks, I can just in my head, Lacazette goals come from him being in behind, and that's just not happening this season, with teams just standing off them a little bit more. And there's no worse team at the moment than Nice to be sitting to be at that against, because they're so lethal on the counter-attack. I mean, every single time they got the ball in the second half, it looked like Nice were going to score. It looked like Nice had 4 players against 3. It looked like I can remember at one point, I think it was 3v2, and a simple pass to Cogello puts him in again. But it was a TT, I think, had a good season, and Biwa, he was poor at Newcastle. I heard he played well.
He
at
was
Roma,
poor at Newcastle.
Yes, he was very, very poor at Newcastle.
Okay.
It was very surprising he went on loan to Roma, because he was very much. He started okay, and then was very much in and out of the side. I think he seems to struggle in teams that can't defend in front of themselves, if you get what I mean. I think he needs a shield in front of himself as well.
A defensive midfielder in front of him.
Yes, he needs a strong defensive midfielder in front of him, because they have that at Roma, because that's the Italian style. They don't have that.
See, this is another problem Lyon had on Friday evening. Sorry, is that they didn't have a proper defensive midfielder in front of him, because Gunalo had to play centre back. And this is a very important. This is a very, shall we say, downgraded position in modern football, that people don't give its importance to a number 6, but defensive midfielder is really very, very important in structuring the defense, and Tolisso didn't really do that. But it's not, again, it's a bit like Mapu going forward. It's just not his job, and I can see this whole defensive thing changing when Gonalon goes back to where he should be playing. And so on and so forth. So I really don't think it's going to be they're going to be plays that poorly defensively week in, week out. At least I hope not, especially not on Tuesday.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, Fournier needs to swallow his pride and bring back one of Kone or Rose into the squad. Yeah. They are central defenders, and they're not world beaters, but their performances over the past few years have shown that they're a hell of a lot better than whatever Young Gambi was going to turn in, or Gonalon playing out of position. And that, not to mention what it takes out of Tolisso in terms of going forward. I think Tolisso had 7 or 8 goals last year. He was a main source of goals from midfield as well. So we shouldn't discount that too in talking about how poor Lyon have been going forward. The fact that Tolisso's has been forced to play defensive midfield. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time this season this has happened, either from the outset or because someone's gone off injured. It's just not coming off, because that attack's not as dynamic as it needs to be or could be without Tolisso there in midfield.
No, I think that's a very honest opinion, Eric. I think if they have 2 centre backs out at the moment, really, Lyon, and then they can't field a 4th. That seems a little. It seems a little strange that you have to then shift Gonalon out of his best position, which shifts Tolisso out of his best position, and then it's that domino effect, isn't it? That you're not replacing like for like, and it did seem to affect them on Friday night. But we will very quickly touch on Nice, who, Philip, were again, as you say, lethal, weren't they?
Oh yeah, everyone basically played well. So 3. I'm not sure if it was a 3-5-2. Sometimes it resembled more of a 3-4-3. But once again, the back 3, I really have to say this again. Maxime Le Marchand is not a good defender. He really is not. He gave the ball away to, I think it was it was not Darder. It was his. I think it was Ferry. He gave the ball away, and he luckily escaped that. I think that was a chance which Bouvou puts over. But Paul Bass is a good defender, as is Genevois. I thought Pierre had a good game on the right hand side, but the marking on Pierre was nowhere to be seen. I was actually quite surprised that Niklas Hult who was playing left wing, was not seen a bit more, because that would have meant that Rafael was not doing his job at the back. But we actually saw more of Pierre, and he was in acres of space every single time. It was quite shambolic, actually. To be honest, I don't think Morel had a particularly good game, or that Sergi Darder was doing his job defensively. But it's a difficult formation to play, this diamond-shaped midfield for Lyon. But like at Nice, I thought Pierre had a good game on the right, Holt had a good game on the left. Seri was probably man of the match for me. Ben Arfa, shall we say, as usual, with some lovely little tricks, great skill to get past defenders, and Germain does, he comes up with the goods. So it's just amazing how well this team is this team is playing. It's very half glass full, glass empty kind of club is Nice. Sometimes it goes really, really bad. Sometimes it goes really, really well. It really varies from those seasons. I'm not even sure I want this kind of club going to Europe, because it could basically kill them the following season. But they're just playing so well, and I really look forward. I mean, there's a team I most look forward to watching every weekend. It's just very, very passionate and decisive in front of goal. It's really quite exciting to watch.
I completely concur with that. I think Nice were fantastic. I think, like you say, Seri was outstanding for most of that game. Cogiello had a good game. And I also think, I'm going to say it now, so it's on record, I think Valentin Germain might be the bargain of the summer for Nice. I think that's a fantastic signing. But we will move on to just before the international break. Lille sacked their manager Hervé Renard and announced just before the final league fixture this weekend that former Rennes manager Frédéric Antonetti will be their new replacement. Eric, is that a good appointment for Lille?
I mean,
I thought it'd be good to go to you first. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it was apparent that a change needed to be made. Hervé Renard has shown, over over a number of club jobs that he's not cut out to be a club manager. I think that's apparent. I think he's had tremendous success on the international stage, particularly in the Cup of African Nations, but for whatever reason, his methods aren't cut out for club play. He's not tactically sophisticated enough. His transfer policy, particularly in the summer, this summer, I think is wanting as well. I don't think he has just the general tactical nous and wherewithal to be running a club, especially one that's as big as Lille. I mean, let's remember, this club were in the Champions League last year, albeit the playoffs, but they still finished third 2 seasons ago, and they have this new stadium, and they have serious ambitions in the long term. They want fans to come in to fill this up, to ameliorate this debt. They want to be playing attractive football at the top of the table, and the results thus far weren't getting it done. Antonetti has had some highs and some lows. I think that he did decently well with Rennes and with Saint-Etienne, but had perhaps less admirable spells at Bastia and at Nice. It kind of depends what sort of resources he's given. We saw over the summer that we may. I think it's fair to take Renard to task for how money was spent, but the fact that there wasn't that much money to spend is also going to be a handicap for Lille. But at the same time, then you look at clubs like an Angers or a Caen or even a Nice that have done exceptionally well without spending a lot of money, and it needs to be a more cohesive attack. But I think by and large, this is someone who has experience at club level and is going to improve Lille's standing within the table. He's going to get this team focused. He's going to get this team playing a cohesive style going forward. He's not going to experiment with formations. He's going to get a settled starting 11, a settled tactical system, and I think he's going to make a positive difference in Lille's season. And at this point, with relegation being a real threat, that's the club need. So in short, yes, it's a good appointment.
Philip, what do you think for Antonetti's return?
I'm quite happy for him, but I don't think it's going to change much for Lille, at least this season. I don't think they were going to go down under Renard, and they're not going to go down under Antonetti. I don't think money is available in January to fill in the gaps, and I just think they just need more time. We've had a show a couple of weeks back, probably a month back. We talked about Renard, about Montagnier. We both said that sacking would not be particularly good for Lille and Rennes, and I stand by this point. I mean, I'm sure that Antonetti, with his experience, he will get something going. But to me again, I was ready to give end of November to Renard to do something, and I felt like something was happening. But I'm not Lille chairman, so he got sacked, and Antonetti is now Lille manager. I'm sure it's a fine appointment. It's nothing. There's nothing wrong with it. But does it make Lille Lille go forward? Because it's still an exciting having the winner of the African Cup of Nations is quite exciting. It shows that he knows his what's the word? His scouting network, and how to win a major competition. So that's a good point in cup competitions. Antonetti is a Ligue 1 man. He knows how to play. He knows how to win in cagey games at home. Really thinking about his time at Rennes, which was quite good. 4 years. It was fine. It was fine. But don't expect superb football from Lille. But to be honest, I don't think anybody was expecting that during the end of October. Such was the poor level of play last season. So I think it's a rebuilding process, and by replacing Renard by Antonetti, doesn't change a lot. It's still a rebuilding process, and they'll finish mid-table. They'll be fine. I mean, I'm not saying. I really don't think they'll go down, but it's just a change. But what is changing? I'm not quite sure what is changing.
Very true. Well, looking at the stats, Lille have won 2 games all season. That's only better than both the bottom 2 sides. Scored 8 goals, but only conceded 9. It might seem a little bit of an obvious question, Eric, but what does Antonetti need to start doing for Lille? What does he need to do to get them to change?
Well, as I've said on earlier in this show and on previous shows, I do think that the talent is there for Lille to have a relatively successful season and not be. I don't think they're going to challenge for Europe, but I think they should be comfortably mid-table. 8th, 9th, 10th with the talent that's on display. They made an effort in the summer to bring players in, Benzia, Mangis, and Boteac in particular were players that were brought in that have some considerable record in Ligue 1. Renato Cervelli, I think has done reasonably well this season as well. But the fact is that Renard didn't look like he knew what his best 11 were, or that he knew what his best system were. And I think that's, as I said, that's sort of stability. Figuring out what's the best formation to play this team in, figuring out, whether you want to go with, these veteran players, the likes of a Beaumont, an Obadi, a Mavuba, or try and bring in some of these younger players who are frankly, some of them are pretty exciting. I'm thinking particularly about the likes of Benjamin Pavard and Adama Sumaoro, some really interesting, exciting young players that are coming through, and to give them an opportunity to maybe build this team into something in 2 or 3 years' time.
I quite like the look of Guirassy as well. I think
Guirassy, Guillaume,
you give him a run of games, I'm sure he can provide something good.
No,
yeah, there's a real wealth of young talent here, and Antonetti doesn't have, he doesn't have a outstanding or horrible record of developing young talent, but giving some of these youngsters a chance to operate, I think is going to be key as well. So there's a lot to be taken from Antonetti's appointment, but it's going to create a consistency and solidity that a club with Lille's ambitions really need, and that to me is what was lacking under Renard, and that's what needs to change.
Well, taking your point about the ambitions at the club, so I've got this question for you, Philip. Is Antonetti the right man to take them forward and onto those ambitions, or is he more of a stopgap, keep them safe, and then maybe move on to something else next season?
He's definitely a stopgap. The good thing about him is that he won't get bullied by the chairman, the media, and stuff like that. But you can't expect to go further than eighth because of the budget, because of the quality of the players, because of the league, because whenever he's in the UEFA Cup, he will always give the league a higher importance than Europe, which is quite frustrating because Hen were in Europe when he was in charge, and that was pretty good. That was quite good, and Hen were actually playing some nice stuff. So right now he's a stopgap, but I'm pretty sure that maybe not this season, but next season we'll see Lille finish in the top half. Of that, I have very little doubt because the players were now brought in as Eric rightly pointed out. They're young, they're exciting. They come from Ligue 2. Ligue 2 players usually adapt to Ligue 1 quite well, given the right tutelage, shall we say. This season is a bit soonish. Next season will be fine, but it won't be Champions League. Shall we say Champions League candidates?
All we hope is for more entertaining football. I think for those poor fans in Lille who've had to suffer maybe 8 goals in a hole in 14 games.
I think they will improve. They will improve.
Let's hope so, at least. We will move on to our next topic, which meant another loss at the weekend saw Toulouse drift further away from those around them without a win since the opening day of the season, and they've conceded a league-high 28 goals. Philip, surely Dominique Aribage's days are numbered now, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm really disappointed with that. I think I've said this before. I was really excited when he got appointed, and really excited that he actually got Toulouse survival. But now it's just like he has to go now, otherwise Toulouse will be playing in Ligue 2. It's been absolutely shocking. It's not just the defeats. It's the way they're playing. It's just absolutely just there for the taking. And right now they are second bottom, and they're going to play at home to Nice next week, who enjoy an away win this season, and then it's the away game to Troyes, who may well overtake them to be bottom of the table. It really is quite strange to see how undisciplined they have become over the summer, basically, and I really can't. Yeah, I really can't put my finger on it. It was just a complete mess, and going forward, it hasn't worked out. Hasn't worked out either. Ben Yedder has not had the season he used to have last season, and it's just not been happening. I'm very surprised. I'm really very surprised how bad they've been. So yeah, my guess is Aribaj will get the sack in the next few days, or maybe next week or so.
Eric, how do you surmise Toulouse's season so far?
Well, I think Philip, alluded to this just a little bit, but discipline. I mean, this team's received 6 red cards in 14 league matches. It's going to be really, really difficult to have any measure of success when you're playing a man down in half of your matches. They started the season with a victory over Saint-Etienne, and people were, a little bit surprised. But going back to that, it was 2 free kicks, and we know that Stéphane Ruffier sometimes has poor days in that regard. So bearing that in mind, it's really no surprise to count that win as a fluke and just say this is a team bereft of any discipline in terms of their being penalized for cards. This is a team bereft of any real attacking inventiveness and intelligence. I mean, they've got the strikers there, and the likes of Ben Yedder and Braithwaite, who we know who've shown themselves to be adept at putting the ball in the net, but what sort of service are they getting? And they have a situation in goal where neither Gokachea or Ali Hamada have done anything to convince me that they're of a league on standard. I believe Gokachea is injured at the moment, but still, it's just a mess top to bottom, and I don't. I mean, a new manager, I think, can help in terms of the discipline, but this team needs to be set up to play in a more intelligent way going forward, and I don't know that there's just the players to do that at this point in time. I mean, Oscar Trejo has shown himself to be a decent attacking midfielder in flashes, but who else is going to be a creative source for this team?
The thing is, ironically, the guy I could have seen replacing Aribaje is Antonetti, because the guy is very, very much a southerner. He's managed Nice. He's from Corsica. He's managed lots of other sides in his time. Saint-Etienne a bit as well. But it stays pretty south. Rennes is a different thing. Rennes is Brittany. Now he's going really up north, the northern you can go in Ligue 1, that is. And I think he would have been more suited, to put some discipline into Toulouse and get them organized, and it would have been more of a challenge, shall we say, for him, because he is an established manager. There is going to Lille. Lille aren't in real danger of going down, I don't think, and I'm sure he'll do a great job there. Or maybe it's a bit, maybe Toulouse is not good enough for him, or something like that. But if you said opportunity to Toulouse to replace Aribaje, who's been poor, and Aribaje goes back to assistant manager, or said, okay, yeah, no surprises there. This is where, I mean, I'm sorry to go back to the Lille appointment, but this is where I don't especially, shall we say, I find it a bit strange that Antonetti went straight up to Lille, or could have waited to go to Toulouse. I think the guy is more suited to this kind of this type of challenge of building and building and building. But right now I am under no illusion that Aribaje has to go back to being assistant manager, who has quite a bit of stuff to learn before being thrown in at the deep end. But it's not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination.
No. Well, they need to start defending first, like I say. Conceded the most in Ligue 1. They've not scored many, but when you're down there conceding, at least you get points if you don't concede. That's the thing. You don't get points if you score goals. You get points if you don't concede. So they need to start stopping silly goals going in. I mean, there was 2 simple goals again at the weekend, and
yeah, one was a corner, and Guingamp actually playing having quite a good season, actually, yeah, I'm not quite sure where the points are going to come from. I certainly can't see them doing anything at home to Nice, mind you. We said the same thing about Gazélec, and then Gazélec just beat Nice with wonderful football. And then there's this big game at Troyes. Yeah, I don't know.
That's the big one.
Sorry?
That's the big one, I think.
Well, in the next month or so, it certainly is. But they don't play anyone major afterwards. Home to Lorient, away to Nantes, and then home to Lille. That could be interesting. And their next, and then it's winter break. So it's okay.
So if Aribaje goes, Eric, have you got anyone in mind that could take Toulouse to that level where they need points now? I mean, they're 5 adrift of Bastia, who are 18th, so they need to start getting something now.
I mean, I'm not sure that anybody really springs immediately to mind. I'm trying to think about
one, isn't it?
Yeah, managers that have been sort of in the recycle bin of the Ligue 1 desktop, if you take my computer metaphor there. And Antonetti is really all that springs to mind. Managers that are out of work, that is. I don't think that unless it were a Ligue 2 club, Toulouse really have the money to spring someone from another job, unless it's in perhaps a lower league. Bob Bradley was an example of that, going to Le Havre, having been not out of contract, but the season was over in his previous job. Maybe an Antoine Camboire, I think, could be tempted with return to Ligue 1. I mean, there's some interesting young players there, and like Regatan and the Alexis Blin and Marcel Tisserand at Toulouse. That he's got a good reputation for developing youngsters. Perhaps he could be tempted away from Lens. They're not having the best of starts in Ligue 2. They're not doing poorly, but they're certainly not looking like promotion contenders as of yet. That could be an option, but other than that, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of options that really stand out to me.
Jean Fernandez, maybe.
Sorry?
Jean Fernandez, maybe. This guy who used to manage Auxerre. He had a very short stint at Marseille. Very quiet, very much an introvert kind of guy, but a good disciplinarian. His sides are very disciplined at the back. That's just off the top of my head. I'm not even sure he's still in management.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. That's the real issue.
I'm just trying to think of a few names there, but yeah, I don't think there's that many people available.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is, even if Toulouse do get a Vary Badger, and it looks like they really will, it's trying to find anything that they can get together to put something together and make a team that's going to stay in Liga. With so many teams in this cluster, I mean, there's teams all the way Guingamp on 19 points in 10th to Bastia in 18th with 14 points. I can't see any of those. There's Marseille, there's Bordeaux in that mix, there's Montpellier. Yes, there's Gazalec and Bastia, but there's a lot of teams that I can't see them overturning, and I can't see many teams that are worse than them. It's going to really be a fight on Toulouse's hands to stay in the division, and it wasn't like the rugby team helped much at the weekend either. So,
well, let's see. Let's look at this from a competitive perspective. We have the two Corsican clubs that are not playing, world-class stuff. We've got Reims. Montpellier, like we said, is gathering pace, and with Courbis and the structure around, they're not going to go down. So if I'm going to give Toulouse a chance of leapfrogging anyone, it would be one of the two Corsican sides and Reims, because I really doubt Lille and Montpellier will be relegated. I think it is very much possible, but they do have to change. I mean, in 5 games it's a winter break, and the winter break is halfway through the season, so that really does have to change. But I think it's just a matter of a couple of a month's work, and it can happen. But it's not I'm not saying it's too late. It's just that everybody has to go.
It's worrying times.
Well, I mean, we talk about managers getting get in the recycle bin. René Girard maybe could be worth a shout. I mean,
he could do something about that. Yeah.
I mean, his Lille teams were always solid at the back. Likewise for Montpellier, he won a title with Montpellier. Decorated history as a player. I think he's of managers that are out of work that have a knowledge of the French game. I think Girard's probably the best choice, being that he is unemployed at present.
Good call.
Renard likes a underdog. I think that might be a bit too speculative, but never mind. We'll move on to the European games that we can look forward to in midweek. Philip, we'll start with Paris Saint-Germain's trip to Zlatan's hometown against Malmö. 3 points surely there?
Yep. 4-0. No real, shall we say, drama to be seen on Wednesday evening, I don't think. Just a friendly reception for Zlatan in Sweden. Where it all started, would be nice for him to bag a couple of goals, but this will basically be the evening where Paris Saint-Germain confirmed their participation in the Champions League knockout stage, because if they win that game, and they are basically through to the knockout stages, which is good.
Is always the goal, isn't it? Eric, do you think that's a foregone conclusion really for PSG?
Yeah, and what I'd like to see, honestly, with this match is perhaps a little bit more playing time for some of these youngsters that PSG have. We saw Ervan Ongenda get a really nice goal on Saturday against Lorient, so maybe a little bit more time for some of these lesser used players. I'm thinking not only of Ongenda, but of
Kimpembe.
Kimpembe, the central defender, Jean-Kevin Augustin as well. Let's let these youngsters get a little bit more of a run out. And maybe Benjamin Stambouli as well. I mean, not a youngster, obviously, but give these players some experience in the European stage. I think that the season that PSG have had this season has been a pretty strong one, and I think that a lot of these players who are sort of squad players deserve a little bit of a reward for their part of that as well. We give an opportunity to rest some players that have been playing quite a bit lately, and Blaise Matuidi I'm thinking of in particular with his international duty. So yeah.
I'll go to you, Eric, obviously, for the next one. Lyon, desperation time, isn't it, against Ghent?
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not even sure if it's the best thing that Lyon get a result in this match, because that would put them in the driver's seat for third, and with it the Europa League placement. And I'm not sure at this point in the season whether that's even a good thing for them, being that it's those extra matches come January and February are going to tax the squad that much further. So, I'd like to see. I think similar to what I said about PSG, I'd like to see Fournier perhaps maybe start some youngsters in this one. Let's get a start for the likes of a Maxwell Cornier or I guess I was going to say Kalulu, but he's injured too. Lyon are really up against it in terms of their squad depth, and it's any additional matches they have to play at this point in the season are really problematic. The more I think about it, for maybe a win for confidence, but I'm not sure that in the long term that's necessarily the best thing for a team that really I think needs to focus on its league placement at this point in the season.
Well, speaking to a Lyon fan previously, I mean, he wants Europa League because the second half of the season will be playing in the new stadium, and the Lyon faithful obviously want to play the likes of Dortmund, Schalke, and some Tottenham, and other big European sides.
Arsenal.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that's possible. Well, he does have a point, but I completely agree with you, Eric. It's really this season is all about finishing second, try to finish second, try to get those players back from injury, and just start preparing the next season. It's really, they really don't have the squad depth to play European football. But saying this, a home defeat would be pretty bad. It would be really, really bad for the club, losing against a side that just won the Belgian league and just not being able to beat them over 2 games. And I think when I went there, it was very much they're extremely enthusiastic and very much free-flowing football. And I'm quite sure that if Lyon defend on tomorrow evening, just like they defended on Friday evening, they'll have a lot of trouble not avoiding defeat. And then there's this other game. So if it ends in a draw, I think it's a good result for everyone. But I do believe that Lyon should just forget about this one, finish bottom and focus on the league for the remainder of the season. As plain as it sounds, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, this is the other thing we have to think about is that Ghent have a real chance to qualify here.
Yeah.
If they win, and if Zenit defeat Valencia, then Genk go into second place. They've got a real chance to advance here, and that would be a huge achievement for the club.
Yeah.
So I think we can't
And
downplay
Belgian
that.
football.
Yeah, I mean it'll be the first time in. I'm not sure.
Ages.
Do either of you either remember the last time a Belgian side was in the knockout stages? It's been quite a while.
It must have been Anderlecht 10 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. So
Even more, I don't know.
This is this is a real trap for Lyon. They're going to be missing Gonalon too, by the way. He's suspended through yellow card accumulation. I don't know what to really think about Lyon. I'll be watching the match tomorrow. You can follow along at the GFFN Match Zone with us, but I'm not sure this is necessarily a good outcome for the club. Any way you shape it.
Difficult one, isn't it? You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't on that one at the moment.
But a very exciting night, though. Extremely exciting.
We'll move to the other competition in Europe, and we'll start with Monaco, who host Anderlecht. They've still got a real chance of qualifying, but it's very tight in that strong group, isn't it, Philip?
Yeah, it's great. It's great having Monaco with one win, 3 draws, still undefeated. Haven't conceded more than the solitary goal so far, and they've got a real chance of doing something against Spurs. A draw on Thursday would not qualify them, but it would put them in a great position for the last game, which will be at Spurs, which will be at White Hart Lane. I think it could be a good run out for them. They managed a draw in Belgium, and I think given the same game plan, shall we say, they can sneak in the odd goal. I'm not expecting a goal fest, but I'm saying a solid 1-0 to Monaco. Should be good.
Eric, what do you think?
I'd go with the same result as Philip. I think that for Monaco, this is a competition that they want to stay in. They're top to bottom one of France's strongest squads in terms of the depth they have, and to have these extra matches to get players that have been injured back to match fitness, I think are really going to be key in the run-in for them. I'm thinking about the likes of an Adama Traore or Thomas Lemar, Nabil Dirar, players that are injured at present are going to be missing a large chunk of time. To have these extra games in the knockout stages come February, come March, I think it's going to be really key if Monaco want to reclaim the third place that they got last year. Right now, they're not too far off that, but to keep all these players, this big squad, match fit, it's going to be really important to advance in this competition. And I think that, as Philip rightly says, if they get the results against Anderlecht, I actually think that would qualify them if Spurs also win.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's that close of a group that if Monaco win, I think that puts both them and Tottenham through. I think with a Tottenham victory as well. But they had a real chance.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think they could have pretty much sealed it last week, but last time out. But a draw in Karabag makes it a little bit more difficult. Saint Etienne go to Rosenborg as well. Philip, what do you think to that one?
We're pretty much through our Saint Etienne, aren't they?
I think so.
Yeah, they beat Dnipro 4-0 on aggregate. So basically, if they win in Norway, they're through. And it was not an easy group on paper because you have to go to Ukraine, you have to go to Norway, which they're doing right now. So yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm thinking why not go for the top spot. Don't know if that will happen, but I'm pretty sure Saint Etienne will make the knockout stages, which is good news after what happened last season, which was basically five draws and that last defeat in Dnipro, where there were quite a bit of crowd troubles as well. So yeah, it's great to see that Galtier is having a good time in Europe. That's maybe. I don't think he was preparing for the European game on last night. I mean, I think Saint-Étienne were just unlucky to lose to Marseille, and Mandanda basically supported them brilliantly as usual. But no, I think a draw would be great for them, because I can see the thing is there's 3 points clear of Dnipro, but I can see Lazio beating Dnipro, which will basically confirm Saint-Étienne's qualification.
Yeah, just to confirm that from earlier. If Monaco win and Tottenham win, yet Monaco go through. That's the only way Monaco will qualify tomorrow on Thursday. Saint-Étienne, if they win, that practically guarantees their qualification regardless of the result in Dnipro, because I think they play Lazio last. So if Dnipro win,
but if they win, they're definitely through.
I think if they win,
because it's head to head.
Heads, isn't it? Yeah. So
they won 4-0 on aggregate.
Yeah, so it's Saint-Étienne, will be through pretty much. Eric, what do you think to that one? Do you think Saint-Étienne not had the easiest time last couple of weeks? Do you think they've got enough?
I'll say a score draw away to Rosenborg, and for me on that one. And yeah, it's good to see them going through. I do worry now that injuries are starting to bite a little bit. Bielsa, Teofil Catherine, Beric are all long-term absences. Lemoine missed the game on the weekend. I'm not sure whether that was through suspension or injury, though. But this might start to tax what had looked a pretty deep squad come the knockout stages. But hopefully those players can be back fit and fighting. Teofil Catherine should be back before the winter break. And the other two, I think, even sooner than that. So, besides Beric, obviously. So fingers crossed that they're back in action sooner rather than later, and that Liga can have at least two sides doing well in this competition.
Yeah, I think the winter break can't come quickly enough for Saint-Étienne at the moment. Marseille against Groningen. Philip, Groningen are yet to win in the group. Do you think that's another easy 3 points for Marseille?
I hope so. It's quite a tough group they have, because Marseille have won twice. So the corresponding fixture in the Netherlands 3-0, and home to Braga, but they're still third. And you don't get that quite so often, because when you have 6 points at this stage of the group stage, you are in the top two. But Braga, Liberec are pretty much having a fight at it, and it's Marseille pretty much have to win on Thursday to get if they want to progress, because then Liberec are playing Braga, and whatever happens in Portugal, Marseille, if they win, they'll benefit from something, even if it's a draw between the top two. If it's a win from Braga, then they go in front of Liberec, and vice versa. It's a good group. It's more competitive than I thought it would be. Saying this, Marseille do have to win, so no pressure. I think they will. A nice 2-0 or 3-1.
Eric?
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. I think Groningen have been sort of the whipping boys of the group so far, and Marseille seem to be sort of hitting stride. We're looking at the likes of Nkudu really starting to pick up his scoring pace. Batshuayi seems like he's not slowing down at all. So despite some struggles in terms of cohesion, it seems like this 4-2-3-1 is really starting to come off. The whole team in particular, the whole team has really been doing well. But the likes of Lassana Diarra and Nkudu have really been outperforming expectations. And again, it'd be really good to have three French teams in to boost that coefficient. I think this UEFA coefficient thing that Liga has really started to play with fire a little bit, particularly with the way that Zenit have been so comprehensively sound in the Champions League this year.
And finally, I've left the biggest game until last, as Bordeaux head to Anfield to take on Liverpool. Philip, can they get a result? I know Bordeaux were average at the weekend, I would say, and Liverpool were pretty spectacular. They must be fearing the worst, surely.
I think it depends on Liverpool more than it depends on Bordeaux. Bordeaux, we know how they're going to be playing. It depends how informed Firmino and Coutinho are. It really doesn't depend on Bordeaux. It depends on Liverpool. If Liverpool want to beat Bordeaux, they'll beat Bordeaux, no problem. I think Bordeaux are solid at the back, and they'll definitely won't be given the freedom that Bakary Sagna or Iñaki Mongala gave Liverpool on Saturday. But still, if Liverpool are capable of playing some very nice stuff, which I don't think Bordeaux are capable of doing. So I'm afraid the best they can hope for is a goalless draw, keep them at bay.
Eric, do you think that it's a case of Bordeaux hoping they can keep Liverpool out?
I think they can hope. I think even if there's a rotated side played from the team that beat Manchester City at the weekend, I don't see a result here. I think that Liverpool have a real chance to win this competition, for one thing. I think that's certainly going to be a motivation enough for Jurgen Klopp to bring a major title to Anfield in his first season. So with that as a motivation, I think you'd have to make Liverpool clear favorites here. They want to go through atop the group, and they're, I believe, in second right now. FC Sion and Switzerland are the surprise leaders at this point. So, yeah, look for Liverpool to be motivated in 2-0, 3-0, something in that neighborhood.
It's going to be a very exciting Europa League, actually, because Liverpool are playing not too badly. Spurs will be there, as usual, and probably won't care all that much. You've got all the Germans, because Dortmund will qualify. I think Dortmund have qualified. Schalke will be there. Gladbach may get third in the Champions League. And then we've got the usual suspects of all the Russians, and I'm sure one of them will be in Basel in the final. It's going to be a very interesting Europa League, and it's quite good that we've got at least two sides who, more than likely will qualify. One that will have to fight for it, but could do it. That's Marseille, and Bordeaux, who will have to work very, very hard at it. But to be honest, I think on Thursday evening we will know if Bordeaux will make the group stages, the knockout stages, or not. Because if they lose to Liverpool, they're out basically, and no real complaints to have there, because they still haven't won in 4 games. That game at Sion, they really should have won it, and they didn't. And that's they won't be able to have they couldn't have any complaints if they do lose at Anfield, which I think unfortunately they will.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I think that will do it for this week. Thank you yet again to Eric and Philip, and thanks to everyone at home for joining us. It's great to really get back into the swing of things this evening. Have a good week, everyone.